So in front of you I have some different samples of some gondolas. Most of these are Athens. And when you try this for the first time, that's what you want to start with. Okay? If you have one of those new $100 gondolas that are floating around on the internet, don't start there. If you get secure enough in yourself that you want to do that later on down the line and play with a torch, have at it. But at the same time, you kind of want to work with the techniques a little bit. Now, there's a couple of different ways to do this. One is either direct heat or you use indirect heat in order to warp, dent, bulge the car that you're working on. And I'm going to show you both on how to do that. But what I do with a car a lot of times is before I dent it, paint it, whatever I do to it, I've already done either some light weathering to it, I've already painted the wheels, I've already painted the couplers, because what I'm going to do after I'm done with the torch aspect of this, then I'm going to go back and I'm going to add a little more weathering, a little more stuff. The best example that I can give to you, and I'm going to ask if you would start the car and just pass it around, please, as I'm describing it. I went ahead and I pre-did, so the sticker on there about metal loading only, and what I did with the graffiti in that was all on the car before I did what you're going to see here with the torch. The reason that I did that is that if you try, and I've tried this, and I've done it both ways, I'm not as happy when I go back and graffiti a car later or add like a patch out or whatever after the car is all dented up. Because you can see, like on the metal loading or decal that's on that, it's bent where the metal is bent, which is the way it's going to happen, and where, well, nobody runs around and adds stuff to a beat up car, okay? People who tag cars, love them or hate them, they don't look for the bent up cars. No, they go find the brand new ones that just got out there, because they want to make sure that they get their artwork over the top of a brand new car, which I know pisses off a lot of people, and I'm one of them too. I'd like to have an actual picture of a nice car without somebody's diatribe of graffiti on it, but it's the way it is. But because of the fact that that stuff is generally there before the car gets worn, it's kind of important to have it there first, I think. Can you do it the other way? Absolutely. It's just a personal preference for me. Yes, sir.
So does the heat not affect the weathering at all when you just go to dent it?
Nope.
Okay, good. It's good to know, though.
No. And where you do like direct, like if you're going to do direct heat, okay, you would never do direct heat on the front side of the car because of the paint, the decals and stuff. The decals will catch fire. I don't know. I heard from some guy that. Anyway, the idea is that then you're working from the inside of the car, pushing stuff out. And that's what happens with a lot of the stuff when I do direct heat. Normally that's what I do. When I do indirect heat, direct heat's pretty easy. Take the torch, point at the car, you get the plastic soft enough, and then you work the plastic with some type of a tool. The indirect heat is that you heat the tool, and then you apply it to the car itself. Okay? So we're going to talk about this little guy. This was all done with indirect heat. The problem with guns and playing with these things is that in order for direct heat to work, you got to have the shell off the car so you can work it from the inside. All right. And what I've found about that is most guns are bent in, out. Covered hoppers are bent in. And usually it's because they've run into something, they've gotten creased, they've got too close to an item or whatnot. And so I've just found so far, and I've done less of this than I've done of that. Maybe over time I'll figure something else out, but right now that's kind of the way it works. The torches that I use, this little guy is a micro torch, and it's a micro mark. You can get it. Some hobby shops carry it. This torch is refillable. This stuff comes from Roking, not tough. And there's a little deal at the very bottom here, and you push that in there and it fills it. Now, it tells you what to do when you fill this and what not to do when you fill this. Warning labels are on things because of stupid people. Okay? In this case, it's not because you're stupid people, it's because you really need to pay attention to this, all right? Because if you overfill one of these things, right, the butane comes out, all right, and it's not going to catch fire. But let me tell you what that feels like when you get it on your skin. That is not a pleasant feeling, okay? So you want to be very careful. When it starts to bubble up, just stop. It's no big deal. You can wipe the excess off the bottom and other stuff, okay? I know it says don't have the torch turned on while you're filling it. Okay, that's the part for stupid people. If that's what you're doing, we don't need you.
All right. You won't be around long. Anyway.
You won't be around long enough to tell them you need to put a warning sign on. So I wandered around, and every now and again I go into a gas station and I find this little gizmo. Okay? They also make things that look like a lighter isn't good enough, you know, the standard big butane lighter. So they made little ones that were kind of like that, but they were like little miniature torches. And those are fine. Now they're throwaway. I mean, once the stuff's gone, you use it. But this guy is refillable too. Now, what I liked about Junior here, it's got a little stand on it, right? So I can start it, lock it in an open position, so I've got a constant flow working. This works the same way. The difficulty with this is you've got to have about 12 hands to make that thing stick. And so it's not as convenient to use that way. The little guys that are like the lighters and this thing, doing direct heat is actually easier with these than this. Because you're holding so much of it, when you're doing the direct heat, you can stand this and get it locked in place and you can run it in front of the thing. But what you want to do is that when you're doing direct heat, you have to do small sections. Don't heat the entire side of the car, it will all roll in very nicely, and then you'll create something you want to build a tree in. We mentioned that earlier tonight. So that's kind of the synopsis of what this all looks like. Anybody have any questions so far? I know I went over a lot of stuff all at once. Okay. I know, shut up and burn something. So, when you are doing direct heat, you have your torch. You pull down this mechanism here. Hit it a few times. And so now it's locked. Okay? So we're going to take this is scale trains. This is a scale train's car. Everybody go, oh my God, he's seen this scale car. Yeah, I'm going to do this scale train's car. So what I'm doing here is I'm doing a small section, and I'm going to heat it up. And then I'm going to turn all this noise off, and I'm going to take a tool, and there's just enough softness.
Oh, wow, yeah.
In what I did.
It's pretty cool.
Right? And so now we've created a bulging effect along that. You can direct the bulging effect by not so much impacting the ribs of the car, which is where you don't get a lot of bending normally, is that you can work with the panels themselves, okay? Now what I found about a scale trains car, which is really kind of cool, the scale trains cars, the plastic, whatever they're using, versus in the Athearn stuff, is that the Athearn plastic, you don't get quite as much time to work it. This stuff has a tendency to stay nice and pliable real easy, right? So okay, so now this is rolled out. That's where we are. And what do you use to do this? Well, in this case, I just use an end of any random pipe. You want to use things that are tiny and small, right? Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to create realistic dents for the scale in which you're working in, okay? When I'm working with a bigger car like this, I use something like this guy. If I want to get a really big initial dent or whatever the case might be. Not only can you use those things, but you can use the end of your X-Acto blade. You can use any number of things, you know, this oddball, whatever. This thing, and this thing, and this deal, and this little file I use are not so much important for direct heat. It's real important for indirect heat, because remember, if you're heating the metal, you're holding this. So that paintbrush there is not a good idea, because that heat transfers all the way down. And again, I learned from a guy, same guy who burned up a decal. Apparently that heat will burn your hand. I didn't know that, he shared with me, but that's what I learned. So these things allow you to safely hold this stuff while you're working with the individual car itself. Now, so indirect heat is what we talked about a little bit ago. So I'm going to turn this little guy on, because I like him better, just for that purpose. That's the hard part, is getting stuff on. For me, because I'm not very good at it. There we go. If I hold it at the right angle, so that's what happens. So with that dude there, okay. And so I want to make some little vents and things like that. I'm going to use the same tool. And all I'm going to do is just going to set it in the flame. And by the way, if you're planning on using this as a precision file afterwards, don't. I'm sure you probably own more than 1 or 2 files in your world. So with the indirect heat, I've got the ability to mark the outside of the car. And you can pass that around now, because that's what we're having to do, so folks can see what I'm talking about.
Oh, I got you. Like
So-
scrapes or whatever, and
It scrapes, it's on the outside, so on and so forth. So now you get the basic look of what that car can look like, and different things that you can do to a car, all right? So, you saw me putting this thing together earlier, and I'm like, what the hell is he doing with this? Well, I'll show you.
That's clever.
they scratched it.
Well, we got more to do yet.
Yeah, okay.
So that's the good news.
Pretty good.
Yes.
Okay, so you all know what this is. It's a nail set.
Yes.
And I'm going to do the same thing to it that I did before. I got this car here, and I want to make a divot.
Just use your third hand.
What's that?
Just use your third hand.
Yep, all 3 of them. All 3 at the same time. See, I have a vise at home, and so it just sits in it. I'm going to do these things. And the reason that I use this method is at the bottoms of the Athearn car, because of where the weight and everything is, you can't roll this stuff out because the weight on the bottom of the car is in the way. So in order to get some distress on the bottom of the car, I have to use something a little more aggressive to get that done. Now, it's not earth-shattering, and you take your time with this stuff. This is not something you do in a hurry. But what happens is that you're working with a black car, so it doesn't show up much. This is just a standard paint pen. You can buy it at Hobby Lobby or in a few other places. Jeff knows better than he knows better than I do. But, because I never remember, he just says, here you go, Bob, and I go, thank you. So what we're going to do here is I want to create, and this is just a standard craft paint, Hobby Lobby, there's nothing fantastic about it. It's cheap, which we love. Inexpensive is good. And I use my fingers for a lot of stuff because it's a high-class tool, right? And I'll ask you to pass that around. It's easier for you to see.
That's pretty cool.
So again, with the scratches and the stuff, you fill it in.
Like it's been used. Get out from that down there.
And so this is, that particular paint is terracotta paint versus I use earth brown for my darker rust. And a lot of guys like burnt umber and so, fine. If you like that, go for it. Again, all I'm doing is a light amount of this because I'm not creating the rest of the car. Now, the other thing that we run into is that you've got this fresh print on the car. You don't necessarily want it to go away completely, like you're not patching it out. So this is a very, very small sandpaper, little wedge that I sell at Hobby Lobby. And this is super, super fine sandpaper, right? And so you guys have already seen the car once, right? You see what it looked like. And over time, you know, the lettering just kind of withers and kind of goes away a little bit. Well, you can do that with white paint sometimes. There's a lot of things that you can do. I'm going to pass it back around. We got that going on. And what you do with that is it just taking the very top surface of the printing off of it, so it's there, but now it looks distressed, it looks weathered. Okay? And if you want to give it a little more color, then you can hit it with some, some chalks and things like that. That will help to, increase the effect. First, back. This one. Nothing up to sound. Sorry about that. So now, so these are pan pastels, which I like. And remember, I've paused us to have a car that is a little dented up. And every car can be dented differently. They don't have to be done extreme like some of these are. Some you may want to do that much too. But what I'm looking for is to create an effect. Now remember, this is the same car I just did a little bit of that denting to. And I gave you a little bit of paint. Well, now I've added the chalk effect to help bring all of that out a little bit. And in order to make it make sense, I'm bringing up the splash that a car would normally get coming off of the road ballast as it's traveling around the track, right? So it's going to come up from the bottom, it works its way up, so you push it up that way. The nice thing about the pan pastel, because I've already treated that car with DullCote at one point when I put the sticker that's on it and all that other stuff, that pan pastel will grab to that DullCote, even though it's dry, and it's been dry for, I don't know, 3 years.
Okay.
I did it. It's going to stay there. Now, you can take your finger over it, you can do this all you want, and some of it's going to come off.
Okay.
Again, anybody that walks up to your layout, picks the car up off of your train, and starts on in, you've hit them, hopefully, with a shovel by the time they've gotten it so far off the layout. Again, that's the thing. I don't worry if a little bit of the weathering comes off. It doesn't bother me. If it really bugs me, gee, I'm just going to get more weathering stuff and put it on. That's kind of the way that I attack that. But what I'm trying to show you here is, and while I'm doing a complete car, is I'm showing you how you can do just little bits at a time. And that's the way you have to attack the car.
So you don't have to spray it again after you put the chalk on it. Just stick
Not if you
that
don't want to, I mean, you
Yeah.
could.
Yeah.
Now, like this scale trains car, okay, this thing is gonna need to be dull coated. I didn't do
Before you
anything
can
to
chalk
it. And what I wanted to show you is you could do it either way. You can start with a pristine car, do this junk to it, but eventually you're gonna want a dull coat car anyway. And then, yes, dull coat will pull the chalk, some chalk off, and it'll pull can pastel off as well.
Okay.
Go back and just put a little more of your chalk, your can pastel chalk, over the top of the dull coat when it's on there. It's done. If you want a very flaky effect, and that's where that first car that I had you guys pass around, that has the junk in it, when I'm ready to do this, I spray the interior thing of this with DullCote, with a ridiculous amount of DullCote. And then I take the junk and I drop it in the DullCote. And then I take powdered chalk, and you use pan pastel, but even cheaper powdered chalk, and I just tap it in there, let it dry. When it does that, you get that flaky, rusty look, because then it's just now, it's adhered to the car in that manner. And once it's done, I don't care how much you rub on it, it ain't gonna happen. Because the dull coat itself acts as the glue, okay? That's why I like it to do that with the junk as well, because you don't have to worry about too much white glue, and then you get this goofy bubble, and you don't really like that. So by using the dull coat to let it dry, and just let it dry. And once you put enough dull coat in there, you drop the junk in there, and you tap in the your chalk over the top of it. You know, this is hard for us. We all suffer from the same disease. Put it down and leave it the hell alone for at least a day. Don't go near it. Don't even look at it. Okay? Good friends of mine that are in the smoking of meat business say, if you's looking, you ain't cooking. Well, that's the idea here. Don't look at it. When it's had a chance to dry, you'll be amazed because so much more richness is going to come out of it that isn't there when there's all that wet dull coat in there, and you're thinking, okay, Bob's nuts. That didn't work. This is crazy. You know what I'm talking about. And even if it turns out that you would like a little more chalk, well, guess what? The dull coat's there to help you add just a little more chalk to it if you wish, or whatever you want to do. Any questions about that? Sir?
You mentioned dull coating when you first start. Does it stay sticky, or does the dull coat do something? What's this dull coat stuff do?
The dull coat. Itself, if you use it first, like I did on this car versus this, the dull coat creates a layer, and there's a tooth to it that allows the chalk to stick to the car better. If I just took standard powdered chalk and put it right on this car, it's going to come right off. There's no adhere, it doesn't adhere to
But
anything.
the dull
'cause it
coat
can't.
stays sticky forever.
It doesn't stay sticky.
No, it's dry. It's like
It just
paint.
dries, and then it's kind of like then putting. If you take a wall, okay, and you paint a wall, right, and it's now nice and flat and slick and all that other stuff, and it's gloss coat paint, right, in your house, right, and then you use a non-gloss or a flat paint. Well, the reason you use a flat paint is because you want all the dirt in the entire world to stick to it and never come off, and it'll drive your wife crazy. She wants gloss paint on the wall so she can wipe it off with water and make it go away. The same thing. The dull coat creates that texture.
It's like primer.
Like a primer
paint.
thing. Yeah, there you go. And so that's that. So that's why this car, and that's why I didn't do this car, you can see, even with all I've done to it so far, it's still kind of shiny and it's not that convincing. It is what it is, and that's okay, because with the dull coat I come back and I can create what I want. Again, my normal process is I dull coat a car before I ever touch it, just because that's me, okay? It's like I build the car, I paint the wheels, I paint the couplers, after I've made sure they're the right kind of couplers and the right kind of wheels, of course, and then I dull coat the car. And then when I'm of a mood to, then I'll weather the car, or I'll destroy it and then weather it some more, or I'll just leave it alone and put a little weathering on it and build the load and stick the load inside of it and go from there.
So
Sir.
Bob, are you using spray dull coat?
Yes, just out of the can.
So then are you outside or in some kind of?
No, I'm in my garage with the door open.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's outside.
Yeah, that's outside. I don't own a spray booth,
Yeah, me neither.
and a lot of guys don't, and that's okay, right? It's just that I've never had a space. I was sharing a little bit earlier, literally 3 weeks ago, in all the years I've been modeling, and that's been, I've been on the planet 62 years, you figure it out. I finally have a space that doesn't require me to have to stop modeling to have dinner, because it's always been on our kitchen table. My train layout's in my garage, which works out okay, but it's not a great place to do a lot of this stuff. And I'm Darcy and Jeff know me. I'm like a little kid now because I got my own desk. I got paints in a rack where I can grab everything. And so my whole world has been out of this box. And I have a box that's just nothing but weathering chills, and I have one that's just about doing scenery, and I have one for junk, and I bought a lot of these at Harbor Freight at one time. They loved me. I was on their calendar for a while. The thing was, I called myself a hobo modeler because I was always on the road, whatever I did, and that's okay. But now I got my own spot. It's really kind of cool that I can work on stuff and leave it. One of the things that I mentioned, this is again just a goofy Athearn car that I haven't done a lot to yet. But when I make loads, as you do, a lot of times guys like to have loads that come in and out so that they can have a loaded car going in and an empty car coming out. Well, when you do this nasty stuff to these cars, a load that's meant for an Athearn car, and that's what this is, I put the load in the car. When I take the load out, I've still got the load that's not a load, where the junk that's left behind after the commodity comes out is still in the car. So at all times, the car is loaded, one way or another. Junk, not junk, right? So, and again, that's part of that. Now, the most recent venture in my stuff is these cars get banged up and harmed, they do. And how do you do that? Well, if I attack this with direct heat, the car's going to bend inside, right? And unless I take the car apart or I work with it without, just the shell itself, I've got no way of pushing the car back up. The other problem with that is Gonds are known for being twisted and turned every which direction. A covered hopper car, there can only be so much damage to it before it becomes unusable to the railroad because of whatever commodity that's going around in it. If you're covering, if you're hauling, grain and certain things, it can't have the ability for air and water and stuff to get inside of it and other things like that. But a lot of the damage that happens to a car is to the outside. There'll be scrapes where it's gotten too close to something. They're trying to fit it in a hole and oops, two cars were too next to each other, and the scrapes and dents, these things happen, right? So that's what I did to this poor guy. All right. Now I'm going to have you pass this car around. What I want you to see is what I've done to it, and then I want you to turn the car over, because what you're going to see on the other side is the way the car started its life before I did the things to it that I'm about to do. So after you guys all get to look at it, I'm now going to make the other side of the car look as fabulous as the dented up side of the car already does. But I want to be able to take you through it. But I wanted you to see the difference between the things. And as I show you the different things that I do to the car, then you'll realize how I got there step by step. Because again, it's not that you heat something up real quick and you make a couple of dents and you're done. You've got to add some stuff to it. And this is a very, it's a basically three-step process. You get your dents, you get your stuff, you get your rust, and then you get your weathering done. And you do it all together to kind of help just, get the car to transition right. The other thing that I will tell you about doing a car that I found most helpful is that I only do one side of a car at a time. Yes. I do one side of the car and then I walk away from it. I did that about 3-4 days ago because I knew I was going to be doing this. So I did it 3-4 days ago and then I left it alone. Here's the reason for that. I just did one side of the car, and I'm excited I'm going to go do the other side of the car. And what do? I do the exact same damn thing to the other side of the car. Right?
Yeah.
Anybody bought any ready for grind cars from Athearn? Well, if you do,
Oh, ready for grind. Oh,
yeah, ready for grind car?
Yeah, I got some.
Did you notice that the grime is exactly the same on both sides of the car? It is. What they give you is exactly the same. It's carbon copy.
Yeah.
The right side looks just like the left side when it comes out of the box.
No, I don't know those.
Okay. Well, for those of you who've ever been fortunate enough to photograph the same side of a real freight car, is that normal?
No.
Oh, okay. So the idea is that by forcing yourself to just do one side of a car and park it, and that's what you do, 5, 6, 7 different cars at the same time. You park it, you get away from it, and now you go back to go doing it, right? So you grab the car that's done, and okay, well I need to do this. I don't even look at the other side of the car. I don't care what the other side of the car looks like. It does not matter. Okay? When I do the opposite side of the car, if I'm going to do anything to the ends of the car, that's when I do it. I do the ends at the same time I do the second time if I do much to the ends of the car. A lot of times I don't because it's not super visible when it's running around. And I'm not making NMRA contest models here, okay? For those guys who can do that, want to do that, love doing that, again, play trains your way, I'm happy for you. I'm not worried about that. I want the visual effect as it's rolling around the track so the stuff people can easily see and go, hey, that's pretty cool, you know? I model for people who don't overthink things because I was a C+ student and I'm good. I don't over worry about stuff. I just want to make sure that anything I do cause interest. A lot of friends of mine who know nothing about this hobby, you know, I'll post a car and the first comments I get back are, well, do you do any graffiti? Because it happened to be a car I didn't put graffiti on. You know, because real railroad cars have graffiti on. Yes, I do. It's on the other side of the car. Here, let me show you that picture. Because it doesn't, again, it's not always the same on both sides of the car. But, again, there's any number of different ways to do this. It's just a matter of making sure that look at what the cars normally look like that get banged up. Be a student of that. And then try to replicate it, not duplicate it. You will fail miserably every time you try. There are guys who post up on the internet, and God love them, they got both sides of the picture of the car. And they're trying to duplicate the graffiti exactly the way that it's put on the car. And God love them, because that's important to them. And what I find with most of those guys is they've got graffiti on 2 models in their entire 400 car layout. And that's just, is that what I want? Okay, well, my rear road is kind of junky, I'm just saying, and that's the way I want it to look. I also don't buy a lot of $100 brass cars for a reason. Brass cars are great. They're easy as hell to dent, let me tell you. That doesn't take any torch at all. But I really have a hard time taking a $125 car and start banging on it. And just, there's a new line of cars out that are all metal, and I can't for the life of me think of who. Arrowhead, that's it. The Arrowhead cars, right? And somebody said to me, that'd be real easy. Well, I got to look at the retail price tag on one of those cars, and I went, not this white guy.
And it's not real easy to do.
Yeah, it's not as easy as it
I
sounds.
read the literature on it, that brass is hard.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't deflect. That's the consensus of people who tried to do that.
Ah, I see.
And you have to take the entire car apart to get to it.
Yeah.
And then getting it back together, and it looks, I've seen the attempts, and it doesn't look as good as this.
Is there a brand of car that you don't want to do, like cheap Tyco or something like that? Is the plastic crappy and it melts badly or anything like that?
I've never met a car I couldn't destroy. It's not about preference, it's really kind of about the car, what I want to do to it. Some guys collect covered hoppers. You know, that 1,100 grain hoppers, right? They've got a 4x8 layout, but they got 1,100 grain hoppers. Well, my HO layout that I'm getting ready to build in my house is going to be 5 foot by 6. Because I'm an S-scale guy. That's what this guy is. For those of you who don't know, this is not O-scale, it's not line up. I model an S-scale, and I have a larger S-scale layout, but not a huge one. But I have a small HO one that I'm getting ready to build. And I don't have super long 86-foot parts cars and things. Even if I could get it to run on the track, it's not going to look right. And so what I do is I look at what interests me. Well, I don't know what it is with me and Gons, but that's my car.
Yeah, mine too.
I love
And you can do anything to them that you want to do to them. You can make them interesting as hell, okay? Boxcars, you cannot make interesting no matter what you do. Oh, you can rust them and you can bend, you take the doors off a couple of them, maybe stick a hobo in one with an open door and going by. But for the most part, they're boring as hell. There's not a lot you can do with it. Okay, a car like this, kind of boring, but I could hide a hobo on the end of the car. All right, but
Boat in it.
well, if you want to, but you know what they're going to be. But even at that, when this thing goes rumbling by, a little detail like that, it's going to get missed. On a flat car or gondola, baby, the world is our oyster when we go to do that. And we can do anything to those cars, and they're great. And for me, that's where the fun lies. So there you go.
So on the top edge of your gondolas, you just take heat up a tool and press it down there?
Yeah, so like on this guy here, I actually use this guy.
Okay.
Because I purposely wanted to push the edge out on the car. And I probably, before I'm done with this thing, that's what's going to happen to it. But again, I didn't want to keep you here all day with this, but by the same token, I wanted to show you as many different things as opposed to the amount of time I take with a car. When I really torture one of these things, it's a 2-day event. Because I do it, and then like I said, I park the car, and I come back, and I do. So I probably have, on any of these cars, I've probably got an hour and 15 minutes worth of work total. When it's all said and done, it's just done over a series of time. Because again, I like for stuff to kind of dry. I like to see what the weathering looks like so far. Do I need to add more chalk? And then I think about, is this going to be a car that's always going to have a load in it? If it is, I'm going to do a lot less to the interior of it and more worried about the exterior look of the car versus what it looks like on the inside. So like the KCS car, and this is an Atlas car versus a Scale Trains versus an Anthem. This car is destined, I've got a particular load that I want to put in this car. So this is all the hate that the interior of this car got. And on the interior, this isn't going to be meant for steel coils or scrap. That's not what's going to go in this car. So the denting I did was a little bit outside, but the majority of the work I did to it was using the nail set and doing the banging in and the scratching and that, because it's a car that's in service, but it's not the car that's 6 inches away from maintenance away duty only with old ties stuck in it, right? But by the same token, I have plenty of maintenance away style cars that's the only thing they're good for.
Is your graffiti hand done or
Yes.
is it decal? Wow, that's good.
Thank
Can
you.
we pass that one around?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I've done, I had a couple of cars in the Southern cars.
That's a really good car.
I've had a couple of cars that I did the decal thing, and I hated it. To be honest, I just didn't like the way that it looked. And see, the thing about it is, and here's another, it's got a fair amount of graffiti on it. There's graffiti on both sides. A simple white pen, like one of these guys here, all you have to do is you can draw a little white outline of a figure or something on it, and poof, you've got graffiti, especially on a black car. There's a camera in Fostoria if you watch Railstream and Virtual Railfan and then Railstream's camera particularly, there's a Coke train that runs down to Columbus, Ohio, and it runs through there, and it passes very close to the camera, and one after another of these Coke cars, there's this little ghost figure out there, and it is on 70% of that entire train. Because that thing is set someplace where this guy went through and he tagged every car he could get to before the railroad police found him. But it's on someplace on almost every one of the cars in that consist. And so that's graffiti, the big blue things that you can do to the side of an auto rack.
Kilroy was here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, great big letter K, L, Z, X something or another. I don't know what the hell that means to anybody, but God love them. Those things are, that's graffiti too. I understand that. I've got a picture I took in Hamilton, Ohio. It was a rail boxcar. And on the door is an owl. Like a barn owl. Hidden into the blackness. If I could get the door off that car, I would frame it and stick it in a museum. It was gorgeous. Absolutely. There's no way, whoever tagged that car, that boxcar had to be sitting someplace for a week for somebody to have done that. That's true art going by, right? And you know it's true art and respected because the rest of the car had little tags and stuff, but there was nothing else on that door but that owl. Okay? And again, so sometimes some of that stuff is really, really interesting. You know, I've seen more than one Snoopy roll by on the side of something, and Charles Schultz could have done that. And maybe in the afterlife he's tagging her. I don't know. But the idea is that, so some of this stuff can be art. But I found that I do these things for the main reason people 3D print, the main reason people kit bash, is that there's nothing worse than walking up to a lab and go, oh, that's Walter's backyard kit number 602, and there's 509, and there's this, and there's the Walter's, you know, DX gas station, and so on and so on. And we can go pick out every kit, even though we've never built them. Okay, they're on a different place, on a different layout, but they're really, yes, you may have built it, God love you, but there's really nothing different. What's unique about your railroad? Now, in buildings, it may always be that way. For me, it's making my cars unique, that yes, everybody in the world has that Southern car somewhere in their life they've had it. It's what I do to them that makes the difference. It's the loads that we create to add to the cars that make them more interesting because, and I know Bob knows this, you put a load on a car, it doesn't even matter if it's the same. You've got 3 flat cars and they all have the exact same road number on the damn car and the loads are different. No one's ever going to notice the damn road number on the car. And anybody that does, we hit them in the back of the head. My dad called it a brain duster.
Brain what?
Yeah, a brain duster.
Brain duster.
Brain duster. But, so that's the fun of all of this. So, I've talked enough. I want to show you how we do what we do to this little guy here. All right. So, turn the unit back on. Now, in order to create the scratches, I want to work with something very small, okay? I don't want something with a really big head on it or any of that. So, again, because, remember, these guys are all metal, we got to find the things that have just little stuff on them. So, I just decide, okay, this is where it's going to go. Can't see it, but I've now made an ugly scratch.
Let me see. Oh, yes.
You keyed it.
Yeah. And that's fine.
You didn't play very long either, did you?
It just takes a second or two to do it, right?
That's the kind of get on and once you let it.
Now the seams
Yep.
on the side, did you use oils on that? Or did you use something
That's
else?
chalk.
Huh? That's chalk on the
Well, no, I'm sorry, I'm wrong, it's colored pencil.
colored pencil?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Never seen that technique.
Because colored pencil, especially on seams like that,
Yes.
because I can sharpen the pencil so much, I can stay really, really, really fine to the seam.
I usually use the oil paint and a little brush and then take a dry brush and wipe it down. But I like the pencil.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, the pencil looks good. It's
But,
fine.
but see, the thing about it is, in order to do what you do, you
Yeah.
can't do this for a living. And unfortunately, over time,
Oh, I
this
got it.
isn't quite as steady as it used to
Mine,
be.
yeah.
Right? And that's because I don't drink enough bourbon. But if I do, then the lines are straighter. Just saying. I'm kind of like Dr. Johnny Fever, that test, if you ever saw that episode, yeah. My reaction time goes up with bourbon, not
Okay.
down, just saying. And definitely steadier.
All right. So colored pencil.
Yep. And it doesn't even have to be a colored pencil.
Could be graphite, but it has to be, well, you got different grades, number 2, number H, whatever.
Well, not to bust your bubble, I did that with a number
Oh.
2 pencil, I'm just saying. So,
Okay. No, it's nice to learn new things.
it's just, yeah, I use what I can find. And what I have, you know, and again, it's just one of those things, I'm always playing with this stuff. I don't just say, okay, well, it's the only way to do it. Because every time I play with it, I get something a little bit different. And when I get something different, it causes me to then kind of rethink the next one that I do. Okay, well, that worked. And what about this? Well, what about that? Or I will see something in reality, and I'll go, how the hell do I make that look right in a model?
Yes.
Okay, a certain kind of stain or whatever the case might be. And that's the nice thing about when I rail fan, I love seeing locomotives just like you guys do. I do. But it's when you get to go and you've got a car sitting on a siding that you can really study the thing.
Yes.
And I take these dumb close-up pictures, and if you would look at a lot of the pictures that I have saved on memory sticks that I used to spend a lot of money on film with, you look at that and you go, what the hell is that? Oh, that's a lower quarter panel of a such and such, which my wife is always impressed by when I tell her that. But again, it just helps me to think, how do I create that? How do I create that? And that's the way I approach trash along the railroad. That's how rock painting is the same thing. Okay, when I do plastic castings with hydrocal with those wonderful things from Woodland Scenics, and they got about 9, I think they got 9 different molds now, right? I've built so much rock over the years that I can walk up to anybody's layout and I can go mold 6, mold 3, mold 4, mold 6, mold 5, mold 6, right? We use what we've got available to us, okay? And so when I make a mold, they dry, and then I I take them out, and when I take them out, I just drop them right on the cement floor in the ground and sweep up the pieces. And then I put the pieces back together any old way I want. You ain't gonna see mold 6, mold 5, mold 7, mold 8 on any rock I do. Because I don't want it to look that way. That's my personal problem, not yours. You all do what you want. And by the way, I've never gone into anyone's home layout and go, oh, mold 6, mold 7, mold 8, okay? Why? Because you're playing trains your own way, and it's none of my damn business. Okay, so we've got a nice big scratch there. We're going to do a couple more, and then we're going to give this thing a little more love. Okay. Now I got all my little scratches. The next thing I'm going to do before I add a little paint is the same trick that I used on this side. I'll take this way there. See, this is printed on there, so, and that's the nice thing about stuff that's printed on, that you can do this ugliness to. Okay. So what I'm doing is that again, the sun's going to fade this stuff, and we know that because we see it all the time. But not only does it get the, the pretty colored logo, it gets the reporting marks, it gets the numbers, and all number of other things. And all I want to do is, because on a nice light gray car like that, when you take the deeper color off, the stuff just kind of then blends into the background. So now our logo has gotten its appropriate weathering. Now again, to my point, you can see where it's still pretty bright down below, but it's more gone here. The whole reason that I didn't do the car the same day is that this side didn't fade the same, because the sun didn't fade the car at the same time on the same day. So we got that. Now again, with the little paint pen deal. So just add a little bit of paint. I don't want all that paint. So I just rub some of it off. And go, okay, well, that's all right. But I want this to be a lot more. And see, the other thing too, by scratching it the way it does, some of the plastic will come loose and there'll be a little bit of that. You want to brush that loose off of there, because it's not gonna, it doesn't hold any purpose to be there. And like that.
Sure.
My wife gave me a bunch of rubber gloves for Christmas one year, because I do all this stuff, and I'm constantly having to work to wash my hands. And that box is still complete, it's never open. Because I can't do this with gloves, it just doesn't feel right, it just doesn't. Right? So sometimes I want to make something a little stronger, so I just add a little bit of black to it, especially along the seam or whatever. And then I will add just a little extra along like the sill lines or the bottoms of it. There you go, gentlemen. Not as drastic, it's different, but the idea being is, again, that's the trick to doing one side at a time and letting it get away from it. Because then you're just not going to just duplicate what you just did on the other side. And it's just human nature. And I know I don't want this to look the same. I'm going to try to do this squiggle a little different. It winds up looking like the same damn squiggle.
Very nice.
There's no set way where a car weathers, so.
Yeah,
It's kind of, that's unique. It looks realistic, doesn't it?
very nice.
So,
Since you like to take and invent your own inventions, have you found a cool way to make coal that doesn't weigh too much, like real coal, and makes it look realistic and all that?
coal, no. And the funny thing about it is that I'm a believer in natural materials whenever I can use them.
But I mean,
So just like the metal loaded metal shavings, a buddy of mine has a machine shop, and they use a ton of oil, and that's why the metal shavings are so dark, right? Darcy was kind enough one time to take me where R.J. Corman loads their sand guns, and I just happened to have an empty styrofoam cup and a lid, and so I got myself a cup full of that, and I have, fortunately, a very great company, Des Plaines Hobbies, Scale America. They made 3 R.J. Corman guns, and they're the right numbers and everything. I mean, it's really cool. And so I am in the throes of finishing 3 R.J. Corman sand loads for my S-scale layout using the actual sand from the beautiful city of Louisville that normally goes in them. I like using that stuff because it causes it to look natural as possible. I did a whole limestone quarry deal for my former club's traveling layout. And when that went away and they did something different, I kept pieces of it because those it's a representation of what the Empire Quarry started out to look like in Monroe County, Indiana, before they had gotten all the limestone out for it was called the Empire Quarry because all the limestone went to the Empire State Building. That's really didn't know that. That's the reason they call it that. Well, Elliott Stone Company owns that piece of ground, and for a while they had a specialty products division that they were making bookends and coasters and all kinds of stuff out of limestone, out of chunks of limestone, little stuff they couldn't do for anything else. And I found out about it. I went over and was talking to the guy one day, and I said, "Would you care if I swept up your machines?" And he goes, "Oh, I have to. You're that stupid. I'll give you a broom." So I filled coffee cans with limestone chips, limestone dust, little chunks of stuff they cut off of that, and I've made limestone loads out of it. The entire quarry is covered with actual limestone dust. That's what I use to do this. So anyway, I didn't want to get rid of it, and so forth. And my good friend, Jeff Knoll, is building a beautiful layout in his basement. And he was thinking about doing a quarry, and I said, well, let me bring over the pieces of what I had saved, and, to give you an idea of what you want to cut or do or whatever. And, this is just reference thing, after you're done with it, send it packing, because I'm just never going to have a place to use it. And Jeffrey honored me with asking me to install that on his home layout, but he wanted it differently. My version was a working quarry. His version is what it looks like when the quarry is done and it's abandoned and all that other stuff. And given my love for trash and rust and all that other stuff, I loved what I built the first time. I really love what I built for him.